the truth about alpha-gal syndrome, because what we've been told is not accurate. And I've dug through the historical documentation. I've gone through all sorts of articles on PubMed, and I've put together what is really the truth about alpha-gal, that, this doesn't start with a tick bite. It starts much more nefariously by proteins being injected in our body through vaccines. And the tick bite comes along and just explodes it and makes it come alive.
Wow, slow down. Talk about that. So you're saying it's a binary system?
Yes. There was research that was done in 1902 that demonstrated the fact that if you ate a protein, your digestive enzymes would take care of that protein. But if you injected a foreign protein, a little tiny protein, the researcher who was doing it was looking for a way to cure the venom of sea anemones from being so poisonous. So he injected a teeny tiny little dot of the sea anemone toxin into a dog. And then several weeks later thought, well, now the dog's going to be immune and we're not going to have a problem. So when he re-injected that same protein into the dogs went into severe anaphylaxis and died. And he was the first person who defined the definition of the word anaphylaxis, which means against protection. And got the Nobel Prize for showing that when you inject foreign proteins into the body, it can cause all sorts of sensitization problems. So I've dug through a lot of the material, Alex, and I found that the sensitization, it's clear that, two of the vaccines in particular, MMR and chickenpox, have the highest amounts of gelatin, and gelatin has alpha-gal in it. So the body has already been sensitized by the alpha-gal in the gelatin of MMR and chickenpox.
For folks that don't know, gelatin comes from animals' hooves.
Cow's hoof.
Yeah.
So then when you get the tick bite and the tick injects the galactose sugar in your body, you've already got antibodies against it. So the tick bite is just, you're sensitized, and then the tick bite lights the fire. And so there's plenty of information out there to show. And the tick bite, the blaming it all on this Lone Star tick is an absolute cover for the mess that they've made with all these vaccines. You can see it clearly to where, now they're going to blame it on, dropping these tick boxes everywhere and getting people these tick bites, and they're developing this alpha-gal syndrome that's caused by the tick. No, it's exacerbated by the tick. It's like you've already got the paper in your body, and the tick comes along and lights the match. The whole vaccine industry, honestly, Alex, just needs to blow up and go away. It's a 200-year mistake. I stopped talking about the childhood vaccine schedule about a year ago now, and I call it what it is, the pediatric poisoning program. Pediatric poisoning program.
Real time, uncensored, unstoppable. AlexJonesLive.com. Take a stand. Share the link.
Do you want to fight? You better believe you got one! I want to get Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, who's been exposing the poison shots and medical tyranny for decades. And she is also an author and filmmaker, and does all sorts of public and private symposiums educating doctors and the public. DrTenpenny.com. And at BusyDRT, tickbites.drtenpenny.com to find out more about that, the July 18th seminar that is coming up just in 2 days. She's an osteopathic medical doctor, board certified, 3 specialties. She's the founder of Tenpenny Investigative Medical Research and an integrative medical clinic located near Cleveland, Ohio, opened in '96. Her company provides a natural, holistic approach to getting well, not prescription medications, and it just goes on from there. And she's invested decades in fighting this tyranny. She's a best-selling author, as I mentioned earlier. But I wanted to get her on about the ticks because you've got Plum Island, where they developed weaponized spirochetes, and then you've got it showing up in New York and Connecticut a few years later. And then now you have all these other forms of spirochetes that people believe have been engineered. You have Bill Gates doing projects that release ticks. They say do something else to cows. You have the World Economic Forum 10 years ago and 6 years ago saying, we want to have Lone Star ticks that, bite you and you get alpha-gal, so you can't eat red meat. Now that's exploded exponentially. You've got ticks showing up thousands of miles out of their ranges, videos of boxes falling full of baby ticks. You've got Google and Gates releasing tens of millions of mosquitoes, and then all sorts of problems coming out of that. The mosquitoes supposedly are sterile. because they have this bacteria in it. Well, does that get into other life forms? We'll get into the unseen epidemic, the modern explosion of chronic fatigue, neurological decline, treatment-resistant mystery illnesses. And we're going to talk about all this with a leading researcher and medical doctor, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny. So let's plunge into this right now. And then towards the end of the interview, I'm going to air a special report on bombs in the World Trade Centers, because Piers Morgan and others have been trying to rewrite history about that. And then the War Room is coming up in 51 minutes with Harrison Smith, the War Room Live. Be sure to join him for that. Dr. Tenpenny, people want to know about this. Thanks for coming on to discuss it. My dad was on a rock climbing thing like 20 years ago in Oklahoma, got bit, didn't know he had Lyme disease, went to the doctor, they didn't diagnose it right, ate a bunch of his joints, really messed up his health ever since then. He went from, being able to do 20 pull-ups to not be able to do one. I had another good friend, had it, they didn't diagnose it for a year, ate his joints. I mean, this has been a problem, and it's going exponential. Then we have Bill Gates hovering around it, and intelligence agencies, not a good sign. So to give us the real intel, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, thanks for being here, Doc.
Well, thanks for having me, Alex. It's good to be back. Haven't seen you in a while, so thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. So I know you're the expert of experts on so much. What's really going on?
Well, ticks are a real problem, and Lyme disease is a real problem, as you know, as you just said. And most people are underdiagnosed, and that's by definition, and that's by design. I mean, when they first discovered, in 1952, when the researchers identified the bacteria that causes Lyme, and then it was released accidentally or intentionally, sort of like in Wuhan, with the ticks on Plum Island, and ended up to be discovered in Lyme, Connecticut. The diagnosis was really an ELISA test, which was not very accurate, because you can use ELISA testing in the lab for a lot of different conditions. So then they developed something called a Western blot, and they intentionally left off. And well, let me back up a step. The Western blot test looks for different antigens on the surface of a tick, and they intentionally left off the two antigens that are most defining for Lyme disease. And that was created by a panel that happened up in Detroit, Michigan, that they intentionally, by design, left out the two antigens off of the test that was most likely going to diagnose you with Lyme disease. And so there's a lot of underdiagnosis. And so people run around for years with headaches and back pain and memory loss and inability to speak and lightning strike, feeling pain down their arms and legs, going from doctor to doctor to doctor, and they can't get a diagnosis. The diagnosis has been hidden until really recently, that you couldn't even really diagnose people with Lyme disease. And in some parts of the country, if people were diagnosing and actually treating Lyme with IV antibiotics or even oral antibiotics, their medical license were sanctioned, and some people lost their medical license. So they, by definition, made it difficult to diagnose. It was just normal aches and pains and anything. And if you did a short course of doxycycline of antibiotics, and you didn't get better by that, then it was diagnosed. Then you were told to see a psychiatrist because all of your residual symptoms were psychiatric and by design. And so it's been a very difficult road for many people. In fact, we're doing a webinar on Saturday about this with a Dr. Carrie Simpson, who's been treating Lyme disease for many, many years. She's actually helped cured, eliminated Lyme from her own body and hundreds of people more. And when I first started speaking with her, what got my attention and why I wanted to have this webinar and to help give people hope and tell them there's ways that they can get better, ways that they can improve, is because she told me that the number one cause of death from Lyme disease was suicide across the board, because the symptoms were so bad and people were so frustrated by the doctors not believing them, and by doctors, going from doctor to doctor, never getting a diagnosis, never getting a solution, being put on too short of a course of antibiotics for too short a period of time, which, sounds an awful lot like when people had COVID, right? They were given the wrong dose at the wrong time, the wrong dose of ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine at the wrong time.
Well, whether you in Australia or the U.S., as you know, the standard global thing was when somebody comes in sick, suddenly don't treat them, send them back till they can't breathe, then get $53,000 when you put them on a ventilator. And again, this happened to my dad decades ago before we even knew about this cover up. Had one of my friends about 15 years ago, and he took him years, the friend, to finally get a doctor and said, no, this is what you have. And he got on that. It stopped, but the damage to his body had already been done. Same thing with my dad. But it sounds like the good news now is when I read the news, they're not really denying it now that Lyme's is exploding and, quote, getting worse and more variants of the spirochete. And then also that alpha-gal is actually killing people now in record level allergies now that this tick is magically carrying, that the WF said would soon be doing this a decade ago. I mean, am I right to say that finally this is being recognized?
Yes, from two perspectives. One is that more and more people are more and more doctors are doing more right things to treat it and diagnose it. And when Secretary Kennedy came out and said that he really believed that Lyme was an epidemic and that we needed to do something about it. I mean, he's from New England and has seen it for many, many years. Interesting about the Lone Star tick, the people that come to our webinar on Saturday will have an opportunity to join a second webinar that is about the truth about alpha-gal syndrome, because what we've been told is not accurate. And I've dug through the historical documentation. I've gone through all sorts of articles on PubMed, and I put together what is really the truth about alpha-gal, that, this doesn't start with a tick bite. It starts much more nefariously by proteins being injected in our body through vaccines, and the tick bite comes along and just explodes it and makes it come alive.
Wow, slow down. Talk about that. So you're saying it's a binary system?
Yes.
Explain that.
That there was research that was done in 1902 that demonstrated the fact that if you ate a protein, your digestive enzymes would take care of that protein, but if you injected a foreign protein, a little tiny protein, the researcher who was doing it was looking for a way to cure the venom of sea anemones from being so poisonous. So he injected a teeny tiny little dot of the sea anemone toxin into a dog. And then several weeks later thought, well, now the dog's going to be immune and we're not going to have a problem. So when he re-injected that same protein into the dogs went into severe anaphylaxis and died. And he was the first person who defined the definition of the word anaphylaxis, which means against protection. And got the Nobel Prize for showing that when you inject foreign proteins into the body, it can cause all sorts of sensitization problems. So I've dug through a lot of the material, Alex, and I found that the sensitization, it's clear that, two of the vaccines in particular, MMR and chickenpox, have the highest amounts of gelatin, and gelatin has alpha-gal in it. So the body has already been sensitized by the alpha-gal in the gelatin of MMR and chickenpox.
For folks that don't know, gelatin comes from animals' hooves.
House hoof.
Yeah.
So then when you get the tick bite and the tick injects the galactose sugar in your body, you've already got antibodies against it. So the tick bite is just, you're sensitized, and then the tick bite lights the fire.
Isn't that similar to like I got stung by bees a lot growing up?
100%.
But then finally one time, my dad, when I was like a senior in high school, they moved into a new house, and I had like this bush hog, larger lawnmower thing, and he said, he lives on 4 acres, still lives there today. He goes, cut down that brush. Well, I'm in there cutting the brush, and I get stung by like 30 bees, like a movie. They're swarming me. I run. And then I swole up. I almost had to go to the hospital. But ever since then, if I sit down on a chair, at the park, I've been stung a few times. I go back into it. Never had it before, but once I had it, I have it. And then wouldn't that be similar to if they grew vaccines for decades on peanut protein, and then now you've had that vaccine, now you eat a peanut, it can kill you? Is that the same thing?
The bee sting analogy is very accurate, because most people, even if they've gotten stung by one bee, it doesn't have to be a swarm like your experience, but just by one or two bees, and some people it sensitizes them so that when they get stung by a bee the second time, they go into anaphylactic shock. And then they have to do the Benadryl and the epinephrine and go to the ER and all those different things. So this is the same thing. People have already been pre-sensitized. And even though there's studies that are out there, I've read them, and they're part of the webinar that we're going to be doing, or the secondary webinar that from people that come to the first one will have an access to the second one. Will show them that just because you may have an alpha gal antibody, people that were given a drug that they'd never ever taken before, ever. This happened in 2008. They were given this drug as a chemotherapeutic agent, and they went into anaphylactic shock. And it was because their body had already been sensitized to the equivalent of the galactose sugar. And so there's plenty of information out there to show. And the tick bite, the blaming it all on this Lone Star tick is an absolute cover for the mess that they've made with all these vaccines.
Well, I follow your work, and I didn't know this. I knew that suddenly it's exploding. They say exponential, but of course we just started getting the COVID shots. And if you look, since those rolled out 5 years ago, I've got the articles and the maps here. It starts exponentially going up. That makes perfect sense that if they're injecting all of this foreign protein we know is in the shots and other shots, then that's going to then prime us when the tick actually bites us. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, once you start looking, it's like a lot of things in the vaccine world, Alex. You know, you and I have been talking about this together for decades. And it's once you start seeing, you see it everywhere. And once you know what you know, you can't unknow it. And so this is, once I started investigating this and looking back at the historical data that goes back literally to 1902, 1903, and then following the rabbit trail forward, you can see it clearly to where, oh, now they're going to blame it on, dropping these tick boxes everywhere and getting people these tick bites, and they're developing this alpha-gal syndrome that's caused by the tick. No, it's exacerbated by the tick. It's like you've already got the paper in your body, and the tick comes along and lights the match. And so
absolutely. So taking the shots loads the gun, the tick pulls the trigger. So looking at this, do we know of any, I know there's antibiotics in general for people that have chronic Lyme's disease. Do we know effective treatments? And then also for alpha-gal, because I hear some people get it and it goes away. Other people, it goes away a little bit, but tends to come back. Are there ways to mitigate alpha-gal?
Yes, there are. There's actually a published study that was showing that acupuncture can actually do that. There's a technique that we use in our office, and it's available nationwide. It's an allergy elimination technique that uses muscle testing and acupuncture and homeopathy that eliminates all sorts of things like things like allergies to meat, allergies to bees. We've treated people with allergies to peanuts and fish and all these different things. So yes, there's a lot.
So many people, even medical doctors, that say acupuncture, if you go to the right Chinese medicine that actually does actually works. What is the mechanism? How do they figure this out? Is it like you hit certain nerve areas and it causes, what's it doing?
Well, acupuncture, as you know, goes back 4,000 years. The bigger question is, how did they track this out 4,000 years ago? But really what they, and I took the UCLA medical acupuncture course back years ago. And the working theory is that there are energy frequencies, little charges that run through your body, and they actually track along your lymphatic system. And so knowing where those key booster stations would be from your electricity outside, those little power stations, when you know where the acupuncture points are and you put a needle there or you use acupressure there, you can sometimes even use just a stimulation by rubbing on it. Most effectively is inserting the needle in there. What it does is it changes the direction of the charges, change the directions of the flows. And there's ways that you can do that.
So it's just like everybody knows when a computer isn't working, the best thing to do is turn it on and off. It's like a reset.
It functions like a reset. And that's what we're going to be talking about mostly on this webinar Saturday, Alex, is we're going to give people hope. We're going to give them a way to eliminate alpha-gal. We're going to have a way to eliminate the symptoms of Lyme disease. And that's why I put this together, because I just saw the pervasiveness of people that were suffering so much from Lyme disease and not getting any help. Now, some people can do a short course of doxycycline and they're just fine. Some people can do an extended course of IV antibiotics and they can be fine. But some people have debilitating symptoms and debilitating problems for their entire life. So we've put together, a course It's just an afternoon. It's just a morning. It's from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central. I'm sorry, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern.
And is that tickbites.drtenpenny.com?
It is at tickbites.drtenpenny.com. And for the people who come to that webinar, we have the special Alpha Gal webinar that'll be available to them after that.
Well, invaluable. I want to watch it because this is crazy. And again, it wasn't just my friend and my dad. I know a lot of people who weren't hypochondriacs. I mean, they admit this is all real now, who wouldn't know why they were sick. I mean, my dad was a practicing physician at the time. And I remember he lost weight. He felt terrible. He didn't know what was wrong with him. He went and had his heart checked. And then finally a doctor goes, no, you got Lyme's disease. And I remember it took like 6 months of antibiotics. And then he finally didn't have it anymore. But he's been in pain ever since. It didn't ruin his life, but it definitely took a lot of time of his life. I mean, he's pretty messed up right now from it. And we can track it all back to that. And then COVID almost killed him. But I mean, I tell you, the stuff they cook up. What about the reports I see that they're finding all these new forms of spirochetes that are the bacteria? And a lot of experts believe that means they're manufacturing it or that more stuff's being released.
I'm not sure about that, but I do know that they're not going to stop. You know, what they've done with COVID, you know, the crimes against humanity, what they've done, and now what they're doing with, you know, trying to make people not eat meat. And, you know, you were showing up there the little short video of they saying we can genetically modified humans. If they're not going to stop eating meat, we can make them sick so that they won't eat meat. And so, you know, they're still continually trying to manipulate with us. I don't know about new spirochetes for what's happening with
Sure. Well, let me ask you this. What's up with, we know Gates has been doing it forever and all these weird outbreaks happen, but Google now, who was also involved at the Wuhan Institute and all that, so was Facebook. They all chip in money for this, and because they are depopulationists. It's come out about Larry Page and Sergey Brin and Eric Schmidt. Did you see where they're going to release 60+ million mosquitoes? It was 30 million. On California, Texas, Louisiana, and Florida. They've already been doing tests, releasing smaller amounts, and then Gates has been doing it for years. What do you think's behind that, and what do you know about that?
Well, I think that, yeah, I've watched this, that Bill Gates has been doing this for a long time, and they're using it as a way to deliver vaccines to people that you know, in third world countries, they were primarily for malaria vaccine is where it was initially started. And it didn't work very well. I mean, think about it. You know, it
violates informed consent. It's a Nuremberg Code violation, right?
Well, not only that, but what is the dose? Is 1 bite enough? What happens if you get 100 bites? And what happens to the food chain of the birds and the frogs and stuff that won't eat these genetically modified mosquitoes that are part of their food supply? You know, so there is just so much destruction going on in the name of health that it's really sure, but
despicable. You're a certified medical doctor, right? So I mean, you're not allowed to do something to me without consent. It's a felony. I'm asking how Bill Gates and Google run around in Latin America and here, and then dump out GMO mosquitoes with God knows what to supposedly, you know, flying syringes is what they call it. Who gave him the right? I got to go to the hospital, the doctor, and sign consent forms. Why does Dr. Bill Gates get to rape me and my family and put in my body what he wants?
Well, and that's the same thing. They've been working on edible vaccines for a very long time that have the same thing. You know, fortunately, I believe it was Tennessee that outlawed edible vaccines in their grocery store because, again, you don't know what the dose is. You don't know how much you're supposed to eat. I mean, what happens if you're supposed to eat 1 head of lettuce and you eat 10 heads of lettuce? What kind of dose does that do to your body? And what is that doing? The whole vaccine industry, honestly, Alex, just needs to blow up and go away. It's a 200-year mistake. I stopped talking about the childhood vaccine schedule about a year ago now, and I call it what it is, the pediatric poisoning program. Pediatric poisoning program. And parents are now waking up, I think, thanks to COVID. I call it one of the gifts of COVID that parents not only started questioning their doctors, but they started questioning all the vaccines. And, you know, Dr. Brian Ardis and I have released a new app. It's called the Vax app. And the Vax app will have everything that you need to know about vaccines right on your phone in the palm of your hand to question your doctor, to challenge your people who think that vaccines are so great. You can pull up the Vax app and you can look at ingredients. You can look at contraindications. You can look at medical science. And we've got a lot of things that we're going to be putting in there.
What a public service. Is that app out yet?
Yes, it is. It's out through the App Store. under just Vax app, VAXAPP, Vax app. You can download that onto your phone, or you can get it through the Google Store for Android.
I'm going to tell everybody to get that because people are ready to hear the truth. And like you said, the globalists admit they've lost all trust. They had UN meetings saying even our own doctors at the UN don't trust the shots anymore. Because even if you argue the science works sometimes, you can't trust groups that have been caught killing people on purpose. I mean, it doesn't matter. It'd be like, yeah, eating a steak's fine, but not at some restaurant that's known to kill people. I mean, it's like you can't trust anything from these people. Wow, invaluable work from Dr. Sherri Tenpenny. Vax app, get it and share it. Free. We'll be back to ask her a lot of other questions about this tick epidemic and what we can do about it. So I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I just constantly read all these reports and I know this stuff's really bad, but there's different mechanisms to do it. But remember, the UN got caught in the 90s by scientists around the world, and then they sent it to the West, they confirmed it. And that was that they were adding a hormone that a woman releases in the second trimester into tetanus shots, and that was creating an autoimmune response that would make the woman reject the baby. And then, I mean, there's just so many documented cases of this type of garbage. But in her presentation that's coming up in this webinar, she said the unseen epidemic, the explosion of chronic fatigue, neurological disorders. Maybe we can show people these slides right here. Just do an overhead shot. We'll do it that way. It's fine. We'll do it that way. And then also, she talks about the diagnostic illusion here. And this is what I wanted to get to with her, because I read about this a lot and see it. And they talk about the vaccines, like the mRNA, gene therapy, getting into your DNA. They denied it at first. Now they admit it. But what is this? Serial passage, invisible genetic engineering. What is she specifically talking about here? Because I see these terms being used a lot. And, I'm not a doctor like she is. Can you explain what you're talking about here, Dr. Tenpenny?
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens in vaccines too, when they do the serial passage to attenuate a virus. And so when they have the virus can first be picked up by a bird, and then it's passed through a rodent. And then they spent years, they spent decades, Alex, that the Department of Defense and BARDA and all those people, were trying to find the perfect weapon, and the perfect weapon was really meant to be a tick, because the research scientists that they hired in 1952, he spent his entire career stuffing ticks full of other bacteria like Burgdorfia and I can't even pronounce them without having them in front of me here, but all these different bacteria. So there's co-infections along with Lyme disease. Lyme never occurs just on its own. There's other co-infections. And the whole idea was to put them inside of ticks, and they were released by the military to go to because they're so tiny. I mean, they're teeny, teeny, tiny. When people see a picture of a tick, like on that diagram and other diagrams, they look like they're the size of a small turtle, when actually they're a tiny little tiny spot. And the actual nymph is even smaller. It's smaller than like the tip of a pencil. And then when they
well, yeah, I mean, some of them called chiggers that we have in Texas, you have to have a magnifying glass to even see the adults.
100%. And when they would release them on the enemy, then they would be difficult to track it to or to diagnose it. That's why they've intentionally made the diagnostic procedures very difficult to follow. And then it would make people chronically sick. And they felt like that we as our military could go in and take over a place where the soldiers were weakened and sick easier than if they just killed them all off. Because if they killed them all off, it would be crimes against humanity, and we would be killing all these people. But it was easier to make them chronically sick.
Soft kill. So sounds like something we've seen done to the West and what modern medicine tries to do to us. This is just and of course we know they were going to release weaponized ticks ahead of the Bay of Pigs. So this happens over and over again. Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, promise you'll come back in the next month for a deep dive with me, maybe do a podcast commercial free, and then I'll air it on the main show where we can drill more into this, because I know we've only scratched the surface. Everybody should go to tickbites.drtenpenny.com and watch your webinar. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex.
That lady's one of the best researchers out there, man. She is a real national treasure, and she's been exposing this for decades and decades. Wow, great to have her on with us. I'm extremely excited about this. You know, we always have the strongest turmeric at thealexjonestore.com, and the capsules are 95% humanoid. That is the strongest in the market. It's the very same great manufacturer that made it as a liquid tincture, the strongest on the market, and even better than powder because there's even better absorption. Ultimate Turmeric, and it's got a bunch of other amazing ingredients that are known to supercharge turmeric. I know so many people that Advil doesn't work when they have a sprained ankle or arthritis, but when they take our brand of turmeric, they go, this works better than Advil. And including family I've had that's like, well, this pill's not as big as my other turmeric. My other turmeric helps, but I got to take a bunch of the pills. I said, just take 2 of these. And whether it's my dad or my wife or anybody, they're like, wow, this worked better. Why? Because those aren't concentrates. Those are raw turmeric. This raw turmeric's 4 to 5% curcuminoid. 95. Okay? So we're very excited about this tincture. Just a half dropper a day. So good for your whole body. 95% curcuminoids. The liquid is better absorption. And this is 60 servings per bottle, so 2-month supply. And right now, if you're a subscriber, you just sign up to lock in at 50%, canceling time for free. You lock in at 50% off. It's 25% off for everybody if you just buy it straight off at thealexjonestore.com. The new Ultimate Liquid Turmeric Tincture. And it's got a bunch of other really cool stuff in it as well. Not just concentrated turmeric root, curcumin lunga, the strongest part, but ginger root concentrated. Zingiber officinale is the Latin for it, and pepperdine concentrated black pepper extract. All of it synergistically works together. 250 milligrams and just a half dropper of the turmeric concentrate, 12 milligrams of the concentrated ginger, and 100 of the pepperdine black pepper extract. Very strong, an amazing product. The newest product at thealexjonestore.com. Liquid tincture, superior absorption. Pepperdine inclusion is the difference maker. Turmeric without pepperdine is largely wasted. Most budget companies do that. Natural enzymes and things in the concentrated pepper get into the cells quicker. Triple ingredient synergy. Turmeric, ginger, concentrated black pepper, 60 servings, vegan-friendly, GMO-free, and gluten-free, free of major allergies, natural flavors only. No additives or synthetic flavorings, and it funds this operation. And anybody getting the products, the other great supplements at thealexjonestore.com, the t-shirts, the collectible coins that are about to sell out, the amazing shower filters of the highest rated, taking out the most toxins of any brand at an incredibly low price, should be a VIP. Every month in your profile, it charges you $30. You can cancel anytime for free. You instantly, when you're charged, get $40 in your profile to spend. Special deals, special offers, and sales on top of all the other sales. Everyone should be a VIP. And if you're worried about some products that sell off from time to time, just become a subscriber and lock in 50% off on all future orders of that product as long as you stay subscribed. Cancel anytime. So become a VIP, become a subscriber, and lock it in with no commitment from you, but it's locked in for you if you choose to keep it locked in at thealexjonestore.com. New liquid ultimate turmeric, the strongest on the market. So good for your whole body and inflammation. Get yours now at thealexjonestore.com.